I invited my lover to our dinner, hoping my husband would accept him instead. I got more than I bargained for. I need to share this story with you. My life has been a bit of a roller coaster ever since the dinner fiasco between my husband and my lover. I haven't been at ease, and I'm always on the lookout to see what my husband is going to throw at me next. Let me back it up a little so that you understand what I'm actually talking about. It all started when my husband and I decided to open our marriage. Things were going great. I invited my lover for dinner, and my husband got all riled up and started bashing me and my lover. The tension and drama that unfolded that night has completely consumed me ever since. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home, constantly waiting for the next confrontation. Hello everyone, my name is Sarah. I'm 36 and I've been married to Joseph, who is 47, for the past 12 years. We have a cute little daughter who just turned 10. I won't be getting my daughter involved in all of this as I want to. I'd like to ask her to stay away from all this mess. I work as a nurse at the local hospital and I enjoy spending time with my daughter on weekends. Being a nurse can be emotionally draining, and over the years it has taken a toll on my relationship with Joseph. We have become emotionally distant. Over time, we'd become more like flatmates than a couple who just talked about groceries, nappies, school schedules, and babysitters. There was no more spark left in our marriage, and we both knew that Joseph and I had agreed. We decided to open our marriage a couple of years ago because we had irreconcilable differences and no longer attracted each other. We wanted to stay together for the sake of our daughter, but lead separate lives. We wanted our daughter to be ready when we told her we were getting divorced. We were both happy with our arrangement. He gets to have his own affairs without bringing drama home, and I get to focus on myself without worrying about saving my marriage. It was the perfect solution for us. It was a win-win for us at first, but as time went on, we realized that our daughter was picking up on the tension between us and it was affecting her emotionally. We knew we needed to address the situation sooner rather than later for her well-being. Ultimately, we decided it was time to have an honest conversation with her about our decision to divorce. The one thing that I did not account for was falling in love again with someone else. There was a new intern at our hospital named Steven. He was young, dynamic, funny, and a big Steven was a charmer. He made every girl around him blush when he spoke. He was a great talker. He could have made it big in sales if he hadn't gone to med school. When Steven came to the hospital as a new intern, he was a breath of fresh air. He made me feel good about myself, giving compliments and always smiling. I didn't pay much attention at first, thinking he was just flirting with every woman. I started noticing that he only complimented me and made an effort to have his shifts around the same time that I did. His compliments made me feel special and appreciated, which was a welcome change from the usual stress of work. I began to realize the impact that genuine compliments and positivity can have on someone's self-esteem. Steven and I had been seeing each other for almost a year and decided to take it to the next level. He was cool with me having a daughter, which was a huge relief. I thought it would be better to break the news of getting a divorce and moving in with Steven to Joseph, and then to our daughter. I spoke to Joseph about it and I was going to see if he had any problems with that. Steven came over for dinner. He said he didn't mind at all, but he'd like to meet Steven alone before we introduce him to our daughter. It was a fair request, so I didn't think much of it and agreed that it would be just the three of us. I was happy that Joseph was taking it well and not making a big deal out of it. I thought that this would help Joseph feel more comfortable. Before introducing Steven to their daughter, it was the weekend that Steven was to have dinner with me and Joseph. I was really excited because it would be the first time Steven would be coming over. I prepared all of Steven's favorite foods and put on a sexy dress because I wanted to impress him. Not that I needed to, but I hoped that this dinner would be a turning point in our relationship. I wanted to show Joseph that Steven was important to me. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath and got a towel ready to welcome him with open arms. I didn't feel any guilt about giving him a quick kiss before Joseph joined us. I also didn't mind if he saw us kissing, as he was already aware of my relationship. It felt like I was a teenager inviting my boyfriend over to meet my parents. It was all new and exciting. We all sat at the table. While I was getting the food out on the table, I could see that there was an awkward silence in the air. So I helped get the conversation going by introducing Steven as the new intern in our hospital. I figured that this would help them get started with the conversation, as they started sharing stories about their work and discussing baseball. I got busy in the kitchen during dinner. I could see that they were. I was relieved to see that they were actually getting along well. I had been worried that this was a bad idea, but it seemed like it was going to work out. I added that Stephen adored our daughter, which I thought was the biggest blunder I made that evening. Joseph's expression changed when I mentioned our daughter. He threw away his glass and pulled Stephen. He grabbed Stephen by the collar and started screaming at him, telling him he had no right to comment on his daughter. He was still not over the fact that Stephen was sleeping with his wife, but now he finds out that he has been trying to steal his daughter too. I'd never seen Joseph this angry. The tension in the room was palpable as Stephen tried to defend himself, but Joseph's anger seemed to be escalating by the second. I realized then that I had accidentally triggered a lot of pent-up emotions that had been simmering beneath the surface for a long time. Joseph went on a rampage and started hurling abuse at both of us. The confrontation quickly escalated into a physical altercation with Joseph lashing out in a fit of rage. It was clear that the situation had spiraled out of control, leaving everyone in the room. I was shocked by what happened. I had to physically separate Joseph and Stephen because it would have quickly turned into a bloody fight. The chaos stopped after a few tense moments, but the tension in the room lingered. Joseph's outburst had a lasting impact and would take time to repair the damaged relationships. I had to send Stephen away to make sure no one ended up in the hospital. After the fight, there was a real sense of unease in the air, with hurt feelings and resentment between the three of us. It was a stark reminder of how quickly emotions can escalate and the importance of addressing conflicts before they reach a boiling point. Once Stephen had left, I cleared the area, which had become a real mess. Joseph had locked himself in the study, but I could hear him smashing things and grunting. I didn't understand what triggered Joseph so much. He didn't even spend as much time with our daughter for him to react this way. I assumed that he already knew that I would be taking my daughter with me when we got a divorce. We never spoke about it, but I figured that it was understood. I was too scared to confront him or talk to him about the way he behaved. I was really disappointed tonight. I'd rather speak to him when he's calmed down. I decided to talk to Stephen and see how he was doing. He didn't pick up my calls for a really long time, which made me worry. I was scared that he wanted nothing to do with me or this relationship after the showdown today. Thankfully, he called me back after about 30 minutes and told me that he was in the shower. He knew the dinner was going to be awkward, but he never expected Joseph to physically charge at him. Overall, he was fine and willing to accept me with all my baggage. I was really happy listening to him comfort me. I wasn't sure what I would have done if he'd decided to end our relationship after today. It was clear that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with Joseph. There was a time when I was really in love with Joseph, but over time we started to lose that special connection. We were both so busy with our own lives that having a child didn't help us stay connected. It just fizzled out. I got too busy with work and started paying less attention to home and Joseph. I didn't even have time to sit and think about whether we were happy with the life we were living. We didn't communicate as much, and we were more like roommates than partners. It was clear that we needed to make a change to rekindle the love we once had for each other. I decided to bring it up with Joseph, but he just brushed it off, saying that I was overthinking and that there was nothing wrong with our marriage. I realized that I needed to find a way to communicate my feelings more effectively. We needed to work together to improve our relationship. It was important for both of us to be open and honest about what we needed and what we were concerned about. After spending almost 8 months with Stephen, I realized how much I was being underappreciated in my marriage with Joseph. After the initial honeymoon phase, I hardly remember Joseph complimenting me or telling me how good the sex was. It felt like I was being taken for granted. It had become a chore for me to cook, clean, and take care of the house all by myself. I would have done that without any complaints if I had been. I would have liked to have been more appreciated for the work I do. I wasn't in a regular desk job like him, but I never complained about my aching feet or being too tired to have sex. Even after making sure that the house was cleaned, I never complained. In retrospect, I could only see that my time with Joseph was filled with complaints about him not liking his job, not liking the way I was, not giving enough time to our daughter, not being more available at family gatherings due to my work. I could go on and on about it. It became clear to me that our relationship was one-sided. He was always making sacrifices and finding fault. I realized that I deserved someone who appreciated and valued me, rather than constantly criticizing and taking me for granted. After the terrible dinner incident, things had been pretty rough at home. Joseph started behaving like an uncivilized prick, throwing things everywhere. I was tired of picking up after him. He was always in a very grumpy and angry mood. I could see that he was scaring our daughter with his behavior. I knew that this couldn't go on forever and needed to be addressed. I sat Joseph down. After a few days, when he'd calmed down a bit, I tried to explain why I was so indifferent towards him and our relationship. I told him that I'd worked really hard to save our relationship, trying to bring it up from time to time, but he kept dismissing it, saying that I was just overthinking. I explained to Joseph that his dismissive attitude towards my efforts had hurt me deeply, and I needed him to understand the importance of communication in a relationship. I asked him to think about his actions and consider how we could move forward with this new relationship of mine. Stephen, I told him that I don't want to be dismissed when I bring my concerns up to him. I want to be heard and feel like I have a say in our relationship. I expressed that I needed Joseph to be more open and receptive to my feelings in order for our relationship to thrive. I hoped that he would take my words to heart and make an effort to improve our communication moving forward. I still wanted us to take care of our kid and not deprive her of any of the parents' love in order for this to happen. I knew that having a cordial relationship with each other would be of utmost importance. I wasn't sure if my words had any impact on him, but I knew I'd done the right thing by clearing my conscience. It was up to him to decide what he wanted to do. I know many people would think I was selfish to leave my husband and daughter just because I was getting a little love from someone else. If you were in my shoes, I'm sure you'd have done the same. It's not just about being underappreciated. It's more about not being valued and being treated like a piece of furniture in your own house. It's important to prioritize your own happiness and well-being. Even if it means making tough choices, feeling undervalued and overlooked in a relationship can take a toll on your mental health and self-esteem. I suppose this was a lesson I learned the hard way after being with Stephen. I was able to know my true worth and not take anything from anyone for being able to think about my own happiness for a long time. It feels liberating, as if a weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I can breathe much more freely. I'd like to thank everyone who has been a part of this journey with me. I'll keep you posted on any major changes that take place in my life. I'd appreciate it if people would be kind and not be so hateful about this entire situation. I'm not sure if you guys are still interested in what happened after the meeting between Stephen and Joseph. Things changed a lot after that meeting, which obviously upset Joseph. After my talk with Joseph, I thought things would improve. Instead, he made things more difficult for me. He sent me flowers to the hospital one day. I was happy that maybe he had finally understood what I was going through. The flowers had an audio card with it. I played it, which was way too loud. It had his own recording stating that I was having an affair, and wanted him to be happy seeing his wife sleep with someone else. Everyone around me could hear what he was saying. It wasn't hard to figure out that I was having an affair with Stephen. It was embarrassing for both of us because we kept getting unwanted attention from everyone in the hospital. I thought it would stop there, as this would have satisfied his ego. After a few days he sent pictures of me and Stephen in a medical folder addressed to our hospital head as urgent and confidential. He assumed it to be a critical case, but it was just me and Stephen having sex in various positions. I must say that the pictures were quite graphic. We were both called in the dean's office to explain ourselves. The pictures were taken at the hospital during our night shifts. We had to write apologies and get a behavioral suspension for a few weeks. I'd had enough of Joseph's tantrums, so I decided to confront him and yell at him for making our lives miserable. I'd been staying with Stephen for almost 2 months. He hadn't. He even let me meet our daughter. I went home and waited for him to show up, as expected. He came home alone without our daughter. I wonder where he had been hiding her. I asked him if he had been having fun trying to ruin my life. He had a smirk on his face and told me that he was just getting started. There was so much more in store. I asked him to stop and let me meet my daughter. He said that the moment I walked out of the door, I had ended any relationship with everyone in this house. I didn't know if he was drunk or if he was too upset about everything. I started demanding that he call our daughter because I wanted to take her. He laughed and said I was crazy to even ask. I knew there was no point in talking to him, so I left. I went to my daughter's school and picked her up. She had a right to know what was going on. He didn't have to go through all of this at such an early age, but I knew my daughter would understand and support me. I tried to make it as simple as possible for her to process what has been going on. Surprisingly, kids these days know so much more about relationships than adults. She told me that I should do. I was really happy that she was okay with staying with her dad if I wanted some time alone with my boyfriend. I was so moved that I cried and hugged her tight, because at least she has a better understanding of my situation than Joseph. She mumbled that I was selfish for leaving her father and her all alone just for my own. I was really upset when she pushed me and told me that she hated me and did not want to see me ever again. I fell on the ground and started weeping. I received the notice for divorce a week later. I was glad that at least one of the problems would be solved soon. I would slowly get my daughter back. Time would tell if we could be a happy family again. There was a clause in the agreement that said I couldn't request custody of my daughter because I was caught in adultery. I was shocked, as I really wanted to live with her. I decided to go to court and fight for custody. The trial was going to be long and tiring. I had Stephen to support me. My husband had lots of evidence that I was neglecting my daughter to spend time with my lover and ignoring important days in my kids' lives to enjoy myself. I had no idea how he got all these pictures, and I guess I lost the case for custody. I was devastated. I was really depressed for a long time after that. Even spending time with Stephen didn't bring me joy. I was not allowed to visit my daughter, as she said in court that she did not want to see me ever. She said that she was very happy with her father and wanted to stay with him. I felt like the world around me was crumbling. I was given a 3-month break at work as I was making a lot of mistakes. I felt that everything was justified and was always in bed, snuggled up, thinking about how my life had turned a total 180 in the past few months. One day, I decided to go out for some fresh air and saw a familiar-looking car parked near Stefan's house. I immediately knew it was Joseph. He had no right to be there, as there was nothing more he could take from me. I decided to sneak up and see what was going on. I saw him smiling and laughing with Stephen, who had a beer in his hand, thanking him for everything. I was shocked. I couldn't believe my eyes. They were together, laughing. I was totally taken aback. How could Stephen be laughing with the man who ruined my entire life? He had been seeing how miserable I had been for the past few months. I ran inside the house, unable to understand what was going on. I was hallucinating or I had gone crazy, thinking about various scenarios in my head. I needed answers, so I went over to Stephen's laptop and started searching. I opened his email and saw that he was the one sending. I also found pictures of us that Joseph had, along with other information that led to me losing custody of my daughter. I couldn't believe that these two men were involved in a plan to ruin my life. I confronted Stephen and asked him about the emails, and he had proof. He just laughed and told me that it took me so long to figure it out. He said he expected me to figure it out the moment I saw the pictures. He told me that he was helping Joseph because his sister was Joseph's girlfriend, and they could only once the marriage was out of the way. He loved his sister way too much and would have done anything for her. I couldn't believe what he was saying. This was the guy I fell in love with and had spent almost 2 years with. How could he not love me even once and do this to me? He asked me to pack my bags and get out of his house. Once I was done crying, he was getting too tired of my drama anyway. I packed my stuff and went to a motel. I cried for weeks for being such a dumb person and trusting Stephen. I was the one who messed up my life. I should have been more careful. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. I've learned my lesson the hard way. Don't trust anyone except yourself. I'm slowly getting my life back on track. I've moved to a different neighborhood and applied to be a nurse in a different hospital. I'm going to start leading a normal life, but I'll never be able to trust anyone again. Thanks to everyone who was there for me on this journey. I hope you learn from my mistakes and don't make the same mistakes I did.